Welcome to African Folktales by Storybiz. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more interesting stories. Also, share this story with someone who might be interested. Let's get into the story. In the peaceful village of Lumaro, surrounded by lush green hills and flowing streams, lived Kamal and his wife, Nima. They were a young couple deeply in love, united not just by their hearts but also by their determination to succeed. Life in the village wasn't easy, but their bond was stronger than any hardship. They started their journey together with nothing but a small piece of farmland and dreams of building a better future. Kamal was a hard-working man, always out on the fields from dawn till dusk. He planted yams, cassava, and vegetables while Nima helped him tend the crops. When harvest season came, they walked side by side, packing their goods to sell at the bustling village market. Nima, with her charming smile and wit, was the perfect match for Kamal's determination. Her sharp mind often came up with ideas to improve their trade, and together, they began to see the fruits of their labor. Their little home, though modest, was filled with love and laughter. Their son, Jumo, was the apple of their eyes. At just 8 years old, he was already showing signs of brilliance. Whenever he wasn't helping his parents on the farm, he would sit under the large mango tree behind their house, scribbling letters and numbers in the sand with a stick. Nima often smiled as she watched him, her heart swelling with pride and hope for his future. Despite their struggles, the family never lost their sense of joy. Every evening, after a long day of work, they would gather outside their hut to eat dinner together. Kamal would tell stories from his childhood, and Juma would burst into laughter at his father's animated expressions. Nima, always the pillar of strength, would gently remind them to save some of the food for the next day. As the years went by, their hard work began to pay off. Kamal and Nima expanded their farmland, bought a cart to transport their goods, and even started trading dried fish and palm oil in addition to their crops. Soon, they became one of the most respected families in Lumaro. People in the village looked up to them, often seeking their advice on farming and trade. Kamal was especially admired for his leadership and wisdom, while Nima's kindness and intelligence made her beloved by all. Their success was built on teamwork and trust. While Kamal managed the business and represented the family in public, Nima handled the finances and kept everything running smoothly at home. Their roles were perfectly balanced, and their love for each other remained strong. For Nima, life was a dream come true. She had a loving husband, a brilliant son, and the promise of a brighter future. But life, unpredictable as it often is, hides shadows in the brightest of moments. What the family didn't know was that their joy and unity were about to be tested in ways they could never imagine. Little did Nima realize that the seeds of betrayal were already being sown. The marketplace of Kawani was always bustling with activity. Traders shouted to attract customers, children ran through the narrow aisles playing games, and the aroma of roasted corn and spicy pepper soup filled the air. It was here, in this lively chaos, that Kamal's path crossed with Zai, a meeting that would change his life forever. Zai was no ordinary woman. She was strikingly beautiful, with skin as smooth as silk and eyes that seemed to sparkle with mischief. Her voice was melodic, like a gentle breeze whispering through the trees. She moved through the market with the confidence of someone who knew the effect she had on people. Heads turned wherever she walked, and even the most stoic of men couldn't help but steal glances at her. Kamal was no exception. He first noticed her while he was negotiating the price of a bag of yams. She stood at a stall across from him, bargaining for a basket of fresh vegetables. Her laughter, light and carefree, floated through the air and caught his attention. For a moment, he forgot about his negotiations and found himself staring at her. When their eyes met, Zai smiled, and Kamal felt a strange flutter in his chest. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, not since the early days of his marriage to Nima. He quickly shook his head, reminding himself of the loving wife waiting for him at home. But the image of Zoe's face lingered in his mind long after she had disappeared into the crowd. Over the next few weeks, their paths seemed to cross more often. Zoe would appear at the same stalls where Kamal traded, flashing him that enchanting smile. At first, the interactions were brief, a polite greeting, a comment about the weather, or a question about his produce. But as time went on, their conversations grew longer. Zoe had a way of making Kamal feel important, hanging on to his every word as if he were the most fascinating man in the world. Kamal began to look forward to these encounters. He started dressing more carefully before heading to the market, ensuring his clothes were clean and his appearance neat. He told himself it was harmless, just friendly conversation. After all, he was a married man, and Nima had been his partner through thick and thin. But a small part of him began to crave Zoe's attention in a way he didn't fully understand, or perhaps didn't want to admit. Zoe, for her part, knew exactly what she was doing. She had noticed Kamal's wealth and status in the village and saw an opportunity to secure a comfortable life for herself. She played her role perfectly, pretending to be impressed by his stories and praising his hard work. She planted seeds of doubt in his mind, suggesting that a man as successful as Kamal deserved more admiration, more freedom, more excitement. Kamal began to change. He started coming home later from the market, claiming that business was keeping him busy. He became more distant with Nima, brushing off her questions and concerns. The warmth and laughter that had once filled their home began to fade, replaced by an uneasy silence. Nima, though deeply perceptive, tried to convince herself that it was just a phase. She believed in Kamal and the bond they shared. She trusted him, as any wife would. But in the back of her mind, a quiet fear began to grow, a fear that her husband's heart was no longer hers alone. And so, the seeds of betrayal were sown, watered by deceit and nurtured by temptation. Nima noticed the changes in Kamal long before the whispers began in the village. He came home later than usual, often distracted and irritable. The warm conversations they once shared over dinner turned into cold silences. When she asked if something was wrong, Kamal would dismiss her concerns with a wave of his hand, claiming he was tired or preoccupied with business matters. But Nima wasn't convinced. She had built a life with this man, shared his dreams, and stood by his side through every hardship. She knew his habits, his moods, and even his unspoken thoughts. And now, something was undeniably wrong. The village market, always abuzz with gossip, began murmuring about Kamal and a woman named Zoe. The whispers were faint at first, passed between traders in hushed tones. "Have you seen Kamal with that woman?" they would say. "She follows him around like a shadow." At first, Nima dismissed these rumors. She trusted her husband and believed in their love. But the signs became harder to ignore. Kamal started spending money on things she couldn't account for, and he seemed to avoid her more and more. Then, one evening, he returned home smelling of perfume, a scent Nima didn't recognize. "Kamal," Nima said gently as they sat together in the fading light of their home. "Is there something you need to tell me?" Kamal avoided her gaze. "Nima, you worry too much. Everything is fine." But everything was far from fine. One fateful day, Kamal didn't come home at all. Nima waited through the night, her heart pounding with fear and anger. When he finally returned the next morning, he was unapologetic. Instead, he announced his intentions like a man who believed he was beyond reproach. "Nima," he began, his tone cold and detached. "I've made a decision. Zoe and I are getting married." The words hit Nima like a blow to the chest. She stared at him, unable to believe what she had just heard. "Married," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're already married to me." Kamal stood tall, his face expressionless. "I deserve more than this," he said, gesturing around their modest home. "I've worked hard, Nima." Zoe understands my ambitions in a way you never could. Tears welled in Nima's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. What about Jumo? What about the family we built together? Komal's response was cruel and final. You and Jumo can leave this house. This wealth, it's mine. I won't have you holding me back. And just like that, the life Nima had poured her soul into was torn apart. She packed what little she could carry and took Jumo by the hand. Together, they left the home that had once been a haven of love and security. As they walked away, Nima vowed that no matter what, she would not let her son suffer for his father's betrayal. Nima took on every job she could find to ensure that Jumo was fed and educated. She washed clothes for people, moving from one house to another asking if they had dirty laundry. Year after year, she paid Jumo's school fees through the meager earnings from these backbreaking tasks. From his first year to his final year in school, she worked tirelessly, ignoring her growing age and deteriorating health. Despite her struggles, she never stopped smiling whenever Jumo achieved a milestone, seeing him as her life's purpose. Jumo graduated, promising to take care of her. But as he moved to the city and started living a lavish lifestyle, he forgot the sacrifices his mother made for him. Nima, now old and frail, waited in her small hut, sitting on the floor, hoping her son would send her money or return to visit her. She tried calling him on the phone, but her calls never went through. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Hunger and exhaustion overcame her, and one lonely evening, Nima passed away while crying for the son she had given everything for. Her body lay undiscovered for weeks until neighbors noticed the foul smell coming from her hut and alerted the authorities. Nima was finally buried, her small, humble grave a testament to the quiet strength she carried throughout her life. A few months later, Jumo returned to the village with a woman he planned to marry. The neighbors confronted him, their voices filled with anger and sorrow. How could you let this happen? How could you neglect the mother who gave everything for you? Jumo, shocked and overwhelmed with guilt, visited Nima's grave. He fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he cried, "Mother, please forgive me. I failed you. Rest in peace, and may your soul find the peace you never had in life." The villagers shook their heads, their hearts heavy with the tragedy of a mother's sacrifice repaid with neglect. Nima's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the value of gratitude and the enduring power of a mother's love.